and welcome to this installment of Frank and Mary here in Nantucket. For those of you who haven't seen the show before, my name is Art Bergeron. I'm an elder law attorney at a firm called Myrick O'Connell, biggest firm outside of Boston. But this show is not about elder law. It's really about my friends Frank and Mary. If you've been to the Salt Marsh or seen these folks on TV, you know that they have 3 kids, Peter, Paul, and Mary Jr. Their goal in life is to live in their house until they die and be buried in the backyard. And if they're in Nantucket, that means they want to stay here. They don't want to move out with the kids. They're going to the West Coast, none of that stuff. They want to stay here. So the question is, who are the people, and what are the programs that you should want to know about if you want to stay here? Now, as you know, I'm not from here, and therefore I asked my friend Alison to be the co-host on our show. So we've been doing this now for about a half a year. I
think more.
More. We've been getting, it's a lot.
Veterans.
Because she always brings the folks here who you really do want to know. Although this person I actually do know. But Alison, you want to introduce our wonderful guest?
Indeed, I would like to introduce Joe Aguiar. He's the president of the Nantucket Center for Elder Affairs, which he will explain, and has been a fixture in our community forever and ever and ever. So,
isn't it great to be known as
I appreciate that.
Yeah, maybe not ever, but many incarnations of Joe. So.
Thank you very much. Yes. Yeah.
So what's NCEA about? And once again, I always, as Alison says, I always ask the standard first question. So are you from here originally?
No, not at all.
And how did you get here?
Well, it's kind of a long way around. I'm originally from Rhode Island, and I was working in Massachusetts as a teacher and an administrator. Received a scholarship to go to Michigan.
Yep.
And at the time, as we were going down Route 90, I said to my wife, we'll come back to the ocean someday.
Yeah.
And I've kept that promise 30 years later and came back to the ocean.
Is that because she kept asking you?
No,
like, when are we going back from Michigan? No,
she was very patient.
That's good.
But when we decided to come back, obviously we were going to come back to Rhode Island, but decided since we actually had 3 children here, we might as well come to Nantucket. And so that's how we arrived back in Nantucket and have made Nantucket our home for 19 years. We've been here for 19 years.
That's for a long time.
And it's the longest stay in any community we've ever had other than when we were growing up.
And you, like my friends Frank and Mary, are planning on staying?
Yes, we are.
You're kind of like
we're definitely
here.
going to stay here.
So can you tell us what NCEA is?
It's the Nantucket Center for Elder Affairs. I think it initially started as probably a Friends of the Council on Aging. I don't go that far back, so I'm not really clear on that. No. But I think essentially what they were doing was a group of people who would get together to raise funds for programs that the town was not necessarily funding with the Council on Aging, and also to take care of the Salt Marsh building. As a matter of fact, if you look at the bylaws, the exclusive responsibility of the NCEA was to take care of the building itself. But we've been involved in much more than that. We're involved in NCEA programs. 2 of the really best they've done, obviously, was the Elder Expo. We funded that. And the annual Man and Woman of the Year, we also funded that. But essentially, when we started, that's basically all we were funding. And as a result, the fundraising activities weren't as significant as they are today.
That's a lot, though. That's a lot. Now, just one more trivia. As a lawyer, I always wondered, who owns that building? Do you folks own it, or is it the town?
The Salt Marsh Center is owned by the corporation called the Nantucket Center for Elder Affairs. The town owns the land upon which the building sits. So that's the distinction. We don't own the entire property. We just own the building itself.
I see. So if you decide to have a change of mission and turn it into a rock club, you're going to have a problem.
Absolutely.
Town might throw you out.
Absolutely.
Okay. Or just
a rock collecting club or a rock and roll
just
club?
A rock. Either one.
Okay.
Either one.
Either way, we'd have difficulties.
And I know that Alison wanted to invite you on. So just talk about kind of, what's going on now.
Well, I think that what's happened to us, which has helped our organization significantly, is about 4 years ago, I was asked to serve for 1 year as the president, and I'm still serving that 1 year. Mm-hmm. But at that time, that group significantly grew. The board of directors went from maybe 9 members at most to 15 and then to 21. And now by the bylaws, it's 25 members. We have currently 21. And the corporation was, anyone who signed up. Now we have 35 members, but that is unlimited. Any number who want to come in and join can do so. I think what happened is because of the growth, there was a significant amount of volunteerism from many, many people with many skills. Some were great at programming, some were great at fundraising, and I think it kind of set that group into motion. And I think the most significant thing that has happened for our organization basically is this program, which was a study on aging on Nantucket.
Yeah.
And this came about.
Is that a recent?
Just a couple of years now.
Yeah.
This came about because our group decided we could maybe raise some funds and have UMass Boston, come in and do a significant study. What happened was we were able to raise the funds with the help of the Community Foundation and use the grant to have someone come in and do this study, which was very, very greatly done. What happened, the study provided 9 recommendations and a number of other subsets. And the 9 recommendations related to the taking care of the building, but also to doing programming that maybe was not available. Now, I want to make this clear. It's not available not because the NCEA doesn't want the programs or doesn't have the programs. It's just because of the limited space. There was only so much we could do. So what we decided to do, we would do some of our own programs while continuing to support the initiatives of the Council on Aging. And again, the most significant being the Men and Women of the Year and also the Elder Expo. What happened is we were able to raise a significant amount of funds. I think it surprised everyone on our board. And so what we've tried to do anyway, is to take this study and to act on every recommendation that they've made, which including programming within the building and programming outside of the building as well. So this year we've been really extremely successful. We had a afternoon tea in Broadway where we had people come in, had tea, and watched a video of top Broadway songs. Mm-hmm. A second program we did is to relate to what the COA has done, is we redid the entire entryway to the building and have made that a dedication to senior volunteerism on Nantucket. There are photos of most of the past Men and Women of the Year, and there's also a plaque honoring those whose photos are not there as well. In addition, to make it a more welcoming space, we had Rich Leone come in, and he painted welcome in all the various languages that are spoken here on Nantucket. So it's, as you come in, the first thing you see is a mirror which reflects yourself, and there's welcoming in any language that you want to see. And then another item that we did is after that dedication, is we had a program called A Tribute to the Children of the Greatest Generation. And we invited people of that era and their children, which are ourselves, in for a diner, basically. And we set the building up as a diner, cooked hamburgers and hot dogs outside, served root beer floats, Coca-Cola, all of the things. And a gentleman by the name of David Barrett, who's a cabbie on Nantucket, donated for display an archive of various things, Look magazine, Saturday Evening Post, records going back to Bing Crosby, the Ink Spots, and so forth. So it was sort of a nostalgia.
Before
evening.
Alison's time. I mean, we
Yeah,
remember.
way before.
I
Way
went and I
before.
did appreciate the.
Oh, you went?
Yeah,
Yeah.
the spread. It was.
And it was just,
well
just a
done.
great. It was free,
Yeah.
and yet we put a suggestion box out or donation box out rather, and brought in more money than probably some of our other events have brought in just on donations. But it was a great time. The root beer floats sold out. People viewed and looked at the exhibits that were there, which were really significant. And it was a great time. What excited us about it, too, is that in each of the events that we had, many people came who were disabled, and some people came who have dementia. And it was surprising to us, although research, I think, points this out, that the music really turned them on. And I think we would kind of like to do some things in the future where it's music and bring in people who are dementia sufferers and their caregivers as well. Yeah. And right now I wouldn't say negotiating, but we are talking with other agencies who might want to do this or sponsor this and so forth. And really, because of Alison and her group, we actually
Alison and
received
her group being the
Council on Aging.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Because of that group, we have been able to get donations in our annual appeal that are designated to be used for memory cafes. So I think at this point in time, it's either $600 or $650 that's totally earmarked in our budget, cannot be touched except for memory cafes. So we're hoping to do one of those. Now, we are planning to do some more things relative to evening program, afternoon programming, but not necessarily a memory cafe.
But by the way, I remember it was wasn't it last year at the Elder Expo that you had brought a guest in to the Elder Expo
Yes.
to talk about that, and I remember Joe saying,
Yes.
"We're committed to this.
Yes, we are.
We really wanted, this, and it sounds like it's kind of blossomed over this past.
It's going to happen, sure. So
Yeah, we're
really
we're willing to do one ourselves, or to, if somebody else wishes to do it, to compensate them to do it or to pay for the program. And I think we've seen it in various places. We were at some of our members were at the Sherburne Commons when they brought in a Celtic group that played, and people who have dementia, I know have dementia, got up and danced and sang and did things such as this. So I think we're on the right direction. Our program, we intend to support the NCEA, whichever way it goes. What might change is really what our organization becomes in the future. Yeah. I think if, for example, we get a new senior center and the town has ownership of it, I think then this will exclusively become like a Friends of the senior center group. And it will primarily, I guess, at that point be fundraising, as opposed to fundraising and programming, which we're now doing as well.
I see.
And I'd like to explain that program. We're not trying to take programs away from the Salt Marsh and from the COA. Most of our programs occur in the opening spots on the calendar for the COA, or in the afternoon or evenings as well. And so it expands the offerings that people can come to.
we are going to get ready for the next half of our show. Joe, thank you so much for joining
my pleasure.
us. Yeah,
Thank
we'll
you.
look forward
Thank
to hearing
you for having me.
more from you in the future. And next will be Rachel Day,
who's going to be on shortly. So thank you very much for listening to the first half. We're gonna break for a non-commercial and then come back and talk to our friend Rachel Day. Thank you.
Great.
So welcome back. And we have another terrific guest who has actually been on the show before, but because she is so important to just about everything that Frank and Mary want to know about here right now, we decided to invite her back again. So Alison?
Rachel Day, Director of Human Services on Nantucket.
Hello again.
Hello.
That's right. Well, maybe we can make her like a series. Maybe we can have her like every quarter or something.
I don't
she
know
comes back.
Well,
no.
I don't think anybody wants to see that. You guys are enough.
As needed basis. There's lots of
There we
important
go.
stuff she has to share today. So, hence,
Sure.
tell us what's going on with the Salt Marsh. A lot of new stuff going on.
Yes, a lot of great stuff going on. The Salt Marsh Senior Center, as you know from Joe, and just hopefully that the public's aware from some of the news articles and things that have been put around, it's starting to kind of bust at the seams, and everybody's sort of hoping to add additional programming or meet additional needs of the community, but we're a little limited in space and ability there in the current building, which is on Washington Street. So through that needs assessment that was done through the Center for Elder Affairs and a little bit of other interested groups, the town created a senior center committee work group. And their charge was ultimately to look at options and future locations for a new senior center. And that group started meeting, and they gained a lot of traction very quickly. It's a great group of people, very dedicated, very motivated to get something in place soon.
We actually had Julie on.
Yes.
Yes, back when the Sherburne Commons site was the bullseye.
So that's still up there as an option. There's two main options right now that are being focused on, and there's a draft scope for a feasibility study that the town is working on putting out to bid very soon. And that hope is to get somebody to come in that has worked with other senior centers, and the focus is to understand the feasibility of each location. So those two locations right now that are being focused on are a standalone building at the Sherburne Commons location. As we kind of nickname it, it's really the Maya Comet Road on the far end of the property that Sherburne Commons sits on, because that is town-owned land. There is a lease there. It does provide for a certain amount of square footage for a nursing home. So for that to be an option, there would be some intense discussions with the Sherburne board that has that lease in play to move it from a skilled nursing facility to a senior center. But we want to kind of look at that as is it really feasible for a center to go out there on that location? The other option that has come up is actually a private residence. It's located at 1 Westchester Street Extension, and that is right off of Crooked Lane, right as you turn into where the animal hospital is. You drive past it, and it's a residential property right at the end there. It's a great location. It's a beautiful building. It meets a lot of the requirements that the committee were looking at in terms of square footage and rooms available. There's a lot of options that could happen in there.
Oh, so you could actually keep that structure? The structure
definitely.
Absolutely.
I thought it was
It's a
vacant
beautiful
land.
building.
No, it's a
That's great.
building. It's a large enough building that we could, retrofit it ultimately to meet the needs of the senior center, and hopefully then some. So that's part of what the feasibility study would look at, is what exactly would the renovation needs be to turn it from a residential property to a public use property or a senior center ultimately. And some of that work is being done now. The current owner has been very willing and helpful to get some of that preliminary estimates and answers. And ultimately the understanding and grasp that we're trying to get is, this is a great opportunity. Is it really feasible? What are the challenges, and what might the costs be that would cause us to have to renovate it from what its current use is to make it usable for a senior center? And if those costs come back that are just too astronomical, then maybe it might not be something that comes back as an option, and we go back to just looking at Sherburne or another location. The committee has actually, I want to say there might be 10 different locations that they have looked at as potentials. So these two were the ones that were really narrowed down to be the best use for this purpose. And, we hope to get that bid out soon so we can get some of those answers. The goal ultimately would be to get something in place that the select board could move forward with and get ready for town meeting in April of 2020. And that would provide for support and funding to then continue on the process.
So best case scenario is, when could it be open if it's the 1 Westchester Street location?
I would say best case scenario, if everything happens super quick, maybe the end of 2021. But again,
Right.
it's really a matter of what it takes. It needs to get on town sewer. It needs to be sprinklered. There needs to be a lot of accessibility upgrades that need to be done. Anything's possible.
Right.
It's just, what would people be
Given
supportive
enough money,
of?
anything's possible.
Yeah.
Right.
What would
right.
people be supportive of, and is it really something the town wants to stand behind and support?
Wow. That's
Hopefully
exciting, though.
everybody's going to stand behind and support a senior center. It's just where is the only discussion. Maybe more realistic would maybe be the end of 2022 or 2023. The beginning of.
Definitely
Sometimes
on the
these
horizon.
things take time. If it's a standalone building, that obviously adds to the timeline. So you're probably talking more 5 years
Right.
out. But that's why this property was so focused on, is because it already exists.
Yeah.
You don't have to purchase. You have to purchase, obviously, but you don't have to build. You don't have to start from scratch, which adds a lot to the timeline, and then obviously the cost. So we're hoping that by balancing out what it costs to renovate or retrofit to the needs of a public use senior center versus a standalone building, the cost would actually be less
Right.
and more efficient use of funding. So
Agreed.
That's the goal there, right?
Yeah.
That's exciting.
And we can get a new center earlier.
That's all exciting.
There's a lot of support with it between the Council on Aging, the Center for Elder Affairs, the committee. I'm actually I shouldn't say I'm surprised, but I'm pleasantly happy that a lot of the Senior Center Committee meetings that are public meetings are very well attended by members of the public.
That's great.
A lot of times, even when we worked with the Island Home, there wasn't a very large audience. There was interested individuals that would, consistently come, which is wonderful. But this does have a large public support that I'm seeing from the senior community. So that's wonderful.
It's also going to make town meeting easier. 'Cause
Yes.
People are going to be well-versed walking in.
Yep.
That's really
The
exciting.
next Senior Center Committee meeting is July 31st at 4, and they try to meet once or twice a month, depending on what the urgent
And that's
needs
at
are.
the Salt Marsh.
It's at the Salt Marsh, and it's a public meeting. So
Come on,
everybody's
come on.
welcome.
Yeah. So maybe tell us a little bit about the website that you've been working on, because it relates to availability and what's going on for seniors. And
Yep.
it'd be great for people to be able to access that and
Yeah.
get some questions answered.
So for a while, there's been a lot of talk in kind of the nonprofit world, as I like to call it, about there's not one central location to go online or to find what resources are available in Nantucket. I go to a lot of these meetings, and sometimes I hear what these groups are doing, and even I'm amazed because of how much really is going on in our community and what's really out there and available. So I put in for a grant through the hospital's community health initiative and received a grant to start up its interactive provider directory website. It was hoped that it wouldn't just be a list of here are all the things that are available in your community, which is the interactive part. So there's a public health component, so you can see all the public health data for our community, where we relate to the state and nation. And then you also have a lot of resources. So if there's something that you're going on or something that you're struggling with, there's a lot of very reputable medical research on there that you can link to. They also have a field for legislative updates, so things that might relate to that field. So there's different sections that we signed up for through this website, and one of them is a whole senior directory. So you would be able to go on there, click on the senior page, and then everything available to seniors in our community should be broken out so that you can see what's available. Some of them are off-island agencies, but they do come to the island and serve. Sometimes if you're just Googling or looking things up, you might not really capture everything that's available in the community. So we're hoping to pull all that together and bring it in there.
And so do you reach out to providers, or do they reach out to you, or
We
how did you
will be.
amass? Oh,
So it's still, it's in its pre-launch stage still, unfortunately. By the time we were able to start working on it, and we're trying to make it very more Nantucket friendly. So they're not just stock photos that you click on and see. They're actually photos of either events or things or places of Nantucket. So when you go on there, it's a familiar feeling. And all of the items that are in there, then it's through Trilogy Network of Care, and they've pulled a lot of the data already or sent a lot of the agencies or programs that are already in the community, and they pulled a lot of that data. And as we started kind of filtering through before we go live, we're noticing a little, some cleanup that needs to be done. And you wouldn't think it would take a lot of effort and time, but it seems to. But what will end up happening is once it's available, if you go on there and you have a program, an agency, an organization, something that you're offering to the community, you can go on there. If you don't see that you're already listed, you can request to be added. It gets approved or denied, and that's ultimately to be sure that they're reputable things that people are clicking on, so that nobody gets, I guess you could say, fraud or scammed or anything like that. So they're all reputable agencies that have been vetted through the Human Service Department.
that's incredible.
So the reason why we have to have her on every quarter is she just can't fit everything in.
Right.
In a slot. So I noticed from our friends who are producing the show that it's time for us to go. Oh. Rachel, this is really terrific. Alison, yet again, thanks for just finding the people that really are the people that people really need to be knowing here.
Well, thank
right?
you for
Thank you both.
Yeah, thank you for having the show.
I appreciate you inviting me back.
This is great. Every quarter we're going to have you back.
Okay.
Thank you for watching again. And thanks very much for Rachel Day for coming. And of course, my wonderful friend Alison Forsgren. And we'll look forward to seeing you on the next installment of Frank and Mary here in Nantucket. Thank you very much.